She told me I was nothing without her, that I'd never survive on my own. Her exact words, standing there by the door, were, "You need me, you'll fall apart in a week and you'll come back." She said it with such chilling certainty that for a second, I almost believed her. 3 months later, my phone rang. It was her, and she was crying. She wanted to know my secret. This is the story of how I rebuilt my entire life from the ground up. It's how I went from being a ghost in my own home to the architect of my own future. And it's how I proved her, and that nagging voice of doubt in my own head, wrong. Those first few days after she left were just a blur of silence and empty space. The apartment, which used to be filled with the noise of our life, was suddenly this huge, quiet cave. Every corner held a memory, every empty chair a sharp stab of pain. Her words just echoed in the quiet, "You'll fall apart. You can't manage alone." And for a little while, she was right. I was a mess. I kept replaying the breakup, picking apart every word and every look, trying to find the exact moment it all went south. That's a special kind of self-torture, isn't it? Looking for answers in a story that's already over. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching for someone who wasn't there, the cold sheets just a slap in the face from my new reality. A breakup isn't just losing a person. You lose the dreams, the routines. You lose the piece of your identity you handed over for them to keep safe. I felt hollowed out. So much of who I was had been wrapped up in being her partner, in being an us, that I had no idea who I was anymore. And the humiliation was a heavy blanket. She didn't just leave, she delivered a final judgment on my character, on my ability to just be a person. She predicted I would fail, and in those first few weeks, my grief felt like I was just living out her prophecy. The urge to call her, just to prove I was okay, was massive, but it would have been a lie. Even worse, it would have been asking for approval from the very person who'd just taken it all away. I was trapped in a loop she had created. The shift didn't happen with a lightning bolt. There was no big, cinematic moment of clarity. It was much smaller and quieter. About 2 weeks in, I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror. I looked tired. I looked lost. I honestly didn't recognize the guy staring back at me. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes were dull, he looked defeated. Her words were written all over his face. And that's when something snapped. It was a flicker of anger, not at her, but at myself. I was furious that I was letting her words become my reality, angry that I was giving her opinion of me more weight than my own potential. And in that moment, I made a choice. This was not going to be my story. Her prediction was not my destiny. The goal was no longer to win her back. The goal was to win myself back. The focus had to shift completely from proving her wrong to proving that I could be right. I realized my healing wasn't going to be found in her regret, but in my own resilience. It was time to stop being a character in her story and start being the author of my own. That decision was the first real step out of the dark. It was the moment I stopped looking back and finally, started looking forward. It's a simple choice, but you have to keep making it every single day until it becomes real. The next 3 months were all about the power of small, consistent actions. I knew I had to rebuild my life brick by brick, so I started with the foundation. First, I performed a digital exorcism. I went through my phone and wiped everything. The photos, the old texts, the videos. Then I blocked her number. Not to be petty, but for self-preservation. It's impossible to move forward when you keep checking the rearview mirror. This created a quiet space where my own thoughts could finally be louder than the echoes of our past. Second, I started reclaiming my own body. I was tired of feeling weak. It started with just forcing myself to go for a walk every morning. Soon, those walks turned into jogs. A friend talked me into joining him at the gym, and I found a place to channel all that anger and frustration. Lifting weights became my therapy. Every single rep was a small rebellion against feeling powerless. I wasn't building a revenge body, I was building armor. I started eating better, not to look good, but because I wanted to feel strong from the inside out. Third, I reconnected with my passions. My guitar had been collecting dust in a corner for years. I picked it up again. At first, my fingers were clumsy, but slowly, the calluses came back, and so did the music. I started reading again, just getting lost in other worlds. These weren't just hobbies, they were pieces of me I had set aside. Every rediscovered passion was a reminder of who I was before her and who I could be now. Fourth, I transformed my space. The apartment still felt like a museum of our relationship, so I changed it. I moved all the furniture. I bought new sheets. I painted the living room a completely different color. I had to erase the ghost of us and create a space that was just mine. It sounds simple, but changing your physical space has a huge effect on your mental space. It was a declaration that this was a new chapter. And finally, the most important step, rebuilding my support system. I had let some great friendships wither because I always prioritized her. I started calling those friends. I owned up to being distant and told them I needed them. And you know what? They showed up. No judgment. We went on hikes, grabbed drinks, we just talked. Having a team is everything. Their presence was a constant reminder that my value wasn't tied to one person's opinion. It wasn't a perfect, straight line. Some days the past pulled me back. Some nights the loneliness was a physical ache. But now I had a routine. I had goals. Healing comes in waves, but I was finally learning how to swim. It was a Tuesday night, exactly 3 months after she'd left. I had just gotten back from the gym, feeling that good kind of exhausted. My apartment was clean, my guitar was leaning against the wall, and I was about to cook dinner. I felt calm, happy even. Then my phone buzzed, her name flashed on the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs. A flood of emotions washed over me, anxiety, anger, curiosity. The old me would have answered in a second, desperate for the contact. But the new me, I paused. I took a deep breath. I was the one in control now, I answered. Her voice was thick with tears, almost unrecognizable. After a few choked hellos, she got to it. She said she'd seen a photo a mutual friend posted online, that I looked happy. She stumbled over her words, admitting she'd been waiting for me to call, for me to break down. She confessed how lonely she was, how things hadn't turned out the way she'd imagined. "How are you doing this?" she asked, her voice cracking. "I said you'd fall apart, but you didn't. You got stronger." There was a long silence. The old me would have gloated. He would have listed off everything I'd done, throwing her own words right back at her. But standing there, in the life I had built for myself, I didn't feel any need for revenge. Her crying didn't feel like a victory. It just felt sad. All I said was, I had to. I decided to build a life I was proud of for me. And in her silence on the other end of the line, I felt the entire dynamic shift forever. The real validation wasn't in her tears, it was in my own calm. It was the quiet, undeniable proof that I hadn't just survived. I was thriving. I no longer needed her to believe in me, because for the first time in a very long time, I believed in myself. That phone call felt like an ending, but the story was never really about her. It was about all the work I did to get to a place where her call didn't define me or break me. It was just a call. If you're going through your own rebuilding phase right now, I want you to know you aren't alone. I'd love to hear about it. In the comments below, share one step, just one small thing you're doing for yourself. Let's build a community of support right here, because everyone deserves to be the hero of their own story. And if this story hit home for you, think about subscribing for more on personal growth and finding your strength after a fall. She said I'd never survive without her. What I really learned was that I couldn't truly thrive with her. The real victory wasn't her crying on the phone, it was the quiet confidence of knowing I built a life that is completely mine. Her prediction of my failure was based on the person I was inside the walls of our relationship. She never even met the person I was capable of becoming. See, the best revenge is not an ex's regret. It's your own unwavering peace. And that is something no one can ever take away from you.